10 Best Classic 13-Second Muscle Cars. Before the rise of 1,000 horsepower cars, the true benchmark for a quick factory car was one that could run the quarter mile in under 14 seconds, with 13-second cars being the ultimate bragging rights. While not all muscle cars were fast, the best ones from the classic era were those that could unleash hell in the 1,320 feet. 10 1970 Ford Torino Cobra. 1/4 mile, 13.99 seconds. The difference between 14 seconds and 13.99 seconds is imperceptible. But in the muscle car world, it is a humongous gap, and the qualifier between a quick car and a really quick car. In a 1970 issue of Motor Trend, editors test drove the '70 Torino Cobra with the 4-speed Ram Air 429 CJ and hit the quarter mile at 1/100th of a second under 14.5 seconds. The basic definition of a muscle car is an American-made two-door, four-seater with a big V8, but it should also include with a manual transmission, because there are no 13-second cars from the classic era with an automatic. 9. 1971 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am 455 HO. 1/4 mile, 13.9 seconds. The Pontiac Firebird is the same car as the Chevrolet Camaro, the only difference being there are no 13-second non-Yenko classic-era Camaros. While it defies reason that two of the same thing wouldn't be equal, Motor Trend tested the fastest Camaros, and both the first-gen SS and second-gen Z/28 did 14.5 seconds in the quarter mile. A 1971 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, however, blazed a quarter mile in 13.9 seconds, which is substantially quicker than its bowtie cousin. Maybe that tiny flaming screaming chicken on the hood made the Firebird Trans Am quicker. Or perhaps it was because the Camaro didn't have a 455. GM had a rule that Chevy cars couldn't have engines bigger than 400 cubic inches, but that ban was lifted by '71, so there's no excuse for this. 8. 1969 Mustang Mach-1. 1/4 mile, 13.9 seconds. Those who were expecting this list to be littered with GT 500s and Boss 429s are going to be disappointed. The 1968 Shelby Cobra GT 500 was a 14.2-second car, and according to Mustang specs, the 1969 Boss 429 did a quarter mile in 14.09 seconds, which is close, but not in the 13s. It would be a shame if there were no Mustangs on this list, but luckily, the 1969 Mach-1 ran a quarter mile in 13.9 seconds. Weirdly enough, the Mach-1 had a 428, which is exactly 1 cubic inch of displacement, less than a Boss 429, but was almost 0.2 of a second quicker. Even weirder, the 429 made more horsepower and torque, but was somehow still slightly slower. They are in essence the exact same car in terms of body shape, so there really is no accounting for this discrepancy. 7. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle 454 SS. 1/4 mile, 13.8 seconds. When GM lifted their asinine ban on big V8s for Chevys in 1970, the automaker wasted no time dropping a 454 into a Chevelle so they could finally compete with the top dog 445s and 426 Hemis. The LS6 version of the 454 had high-performance manifolds and carburetors, making them the horsepower champs of the class. Chevrolet made 4,475 Chevelle with the 454 LS6 engines, and they were the baddest bow ties of the classic muscle car era. Actually, there was a 1970 El Camino 454 SS that could do a quarter mile in 12.74 seconds. But that is technically a truck, and this is a list of 13-second cars, not 12-second pickups. 6. 1969 Dodge Dart GTS, 1/4 mile, 13.7 seconds. The Dodge Dart and its Plymouth cousin the Duster are kind of overlooked muscle cars because they were the dorkiest of all the Mopars. Maybe dorky is the wrong word, but boxy certainly applies. The 1969 Dart GTS, however, pulled a Huey Lewis and the News and proved it's hip to be square. Fitted with a monster 440, the 69 GTS was maybe the first sleeper car because nobody could have guessed how insanely quick that unassuming set of wheels was. The year before, in 1968, there was a special Hurst-reworked Hemi Dart with a 426 that reportedly did a quarter mile in the 10s, but that's not a production model, and 10s are not 13s, so it has no place on this list. 5. 1971 Pontiac GTO Judge 455, 1/4 mile, 13.4 seconds. Pontiac kicked off the muscle car craze in 1964 with a big-engine GTO option package for the Le Mans. Eventually, the GTO became its own model, and while it was always quick, it finally broke into the 13 clubs in 1971 with the Judge 455. Despite being the highest performance GTO ever, only 357 Judges were sold in '71, and Pontiac discontinued it. At the time, Pontiac advertised the 455 cubic inch HO as producing more net horsepower than any engine in its history, and that may have been the problem with the low sales. People weren't buying them because they couldn't get them insured. A GTO is lovingly referred to as a GOAT, which also stands for Greatest of All Time, and the '71 Judge was certainly the top variant. 4. 1969 Dodge Charger 500, 1/4 mile, 13.35 seconds. This list could be populated by numerous Chargers, but in the interest of diversity and inclusion, it will just have the quickest of the quickest. The 1969 Charger 500 is a few tenths of a second quicker than the '69 Charger Daytona and much less peculiar looking. Okay, the Daytona is radically cool, but nose cones and giant wings aren't for everybody. The 500 was a slightly more aerodynamic version of the RT and is one of the rarest Chargers. A total of 392 were made, with only 67 packing the 426 Hemi, and a mere 27 came equipped with the 4-speed. In a 1969 Hot Rod magazine test drive, republished by Motor Trend, the reviewer noted the 500 was easily one of the best high-speed stockers we've sampled. Since then, it has been regarded as the finest muscle car ever made. 3. 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1, 1/4 mile, 13.3 seconds. After producing nothing but mid-priced luxury grandpa cars for the past few decades, it's hard for some people to wrap their heads around the fact that Buick made one of the most fearsome rides of the classic muscle car era. The 1970 GSX Stage 1 produced more torque than any American production car until the Dodge Viper beat it in 2003. A lot of people also probably aren't really clear on what the heck a GSX Stage 1 is, but it's simple. It's a '70 Buick Skylark with the Grand Sport 455 trim, plus the GSX option, and the Stage 1 performance package. The GSX engine weighed around 150 pounds less than a Chevy 454, which combined with the massive torque output, made it quick as lightning off the line. 2. 1969 Plymouth Roadrunner, 1/4 mile, 13.3 seconds. The Plymouth Roadrunner was a bare-bones performance car with a powerful engine and not a lot of amenities. They did spring to license the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote characters and spent $10,000 to develop the Meep Meep horn, but its purpose was to be a no-frills quick car, and it achieved that with an almost cartoonish level of speed. A '69 Roadrunner 426 shot off the line like it had a Wile E. Coyote Acme rocket strapped to the roof. The only difference is, they rarely crashed into a fake tunnel painted on the side of a mountain, and instead just beat everyone in drag races. Motor Trend named it Car of the Year in 1969 because it was a budget muscle car that blew all others away. 1. 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda, 1/4 mile, 13.1 seconds. The difference between the slowest car on this list and the top 13-second car, the 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda, is the time it takes to read the word owned. It's just 0.8 of a second, but it might as well be a million years when it comes to bragging rights. Someone with a factory car that could obliterate a 1/4 mile in 13.1 seconds was king or queen of the track in the classic muscle car era. '70 was the year that the Barracuda stopped having its own unique body style and became basically a Dodge Challenger. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because the Challenger was decidedly cool-looking. It was also the year Mother Mopar made her quickest ride, and the reason why it eclipsed other 426 is that it had upgraded suspension components and structural reinforcements that more effectively transferred that power to the road.